Step into the heart-wrenching story of Gwen Araujo, a transgender teenager whose courage to live her truth ended in a tragic and brutal crime. Discover the events that led to her untimely death, the motivations behind her murder, and the trial that shocked the nation and changed the legal landscape. This is more than a story, it's a powerful reminder of the fight for justice and equality. Stay tuned for an unforgettable journey into Gwen's life and legacy.
Gwen Araujo was born on February 24, 1985, in Brawley, California. As Eddie Araujo Jr., she grew up in Newark, California, where she lived with her mother, Sylvia Guerrero, and her siblings. From a young age, Gwen knew that she was different from other boys. Despite being assigned male at birth, she felt a strong connection to femininity and identified as a girl. This internal struggle marked her early years as she navigated the complexities of her gender identity in a world that was not always accepting or understanding. Gwen's mother, Sylvia, noticed her child's preferences early on, as Gwen gravitated toward traditionally feminine clothing and toys. While Sylvia initially struggled with understanding Gwen's identity, she eventually embraced and supported her daughter. However, the journey was not without its challenges, as Gwen faced bullying and discrimination from peers who did not understand her identity. In high school, Gwen began to openly express her true self, adopting the name Gwen and presenting as female. This transition was a significant moment in her life, as she sought acceptance and the freedom to live authentically. However, it also exposed her to increased harassment and violence, as society's prejudices against transgender individuals became more evident. Despite the challenges, Gwen found solace in her family, who provided her with the love and support she needed. Her mother, in particular, became her fiercest advocate, standing by her side as Gwen navigated the difficulties of being a transgender teenager in a largely unaccepting world. Gwen's courage in living her truth at such a young age is a testament to her resilience and determination. She faced the world with bravery, even as it became increasingly hostile. Gwen's story is one of a young woman striving to find her place in a world that often refused to see her for who she truly was. Unfortunately, Gwen's life was tragically cut short, but her legacy as a symbol of the struggles faced by transgender individuals continues to resonate. Her early life and the support she received from her family are crucial to understanding the person she was and the impact her story would have on the world. On the night of October 3, 2002, Gwen Araujo attended a party at the home of Michael Majid's son, one of the 4 men who would later be involved in her murder. The events leading up to that night were fraught with tension, as Gwen had been socializing with a group of young men who were unaware of her transgender identity. Among this group were Michael Majid's son, Jose Merrill, and Jaron Neighbors, who had become romantically interested in Gwen, believing her to be a cisgender woman. As the night progressed, suspicion grew among the men, fueled by rumors and conversations that questioned Gwen's gender. This suspicion culminated in a confrontation where the men forced Gwen to reveal her genitalia, confirming their suspicions that she was transgender. The revelation sparked a violent and brutal reaction from the group. What followed was a horrific act of violence. Enraged by the discovery, the men, led by Majid's son and Merrill, brutally beat Gwen. They struck her with a frying pan, punched and kicked her repeatedly, and eventually strangled her with a rope. The assault was so severe that Gwen succumbed to her injuries, dying at the scene. The motivation behind the murder was rooted in transphobia, fueled by the men's feelings of betrayal and anger upon discovering Gwen's transgender identity. Their violent reaction was a clear manifestation of the deep-seated prejudices and toxic masculinity that still pervade society. The notion that their masculinity had been threatened by Gwen's existence as a transgender woman led them to commit a heinous act that shocked the nation. After the murder, the men attempted to cover up their crime. They wrapped Gwen's body in a blanket and drove to a remote location in the Sierra Nevada mountains, where they buried her in a shallow grave. The murder of Gwen Araujo was not just a crime of passion, it was a hate crime, driven by ignorance, fear, and a refusal to accept Gwen for who she was. The brutal nature of the murder and the motivations behind it brought national attention to the violence faced by transgender individuals. Gwen's death became a rallying point for the transgender community and its allies, who demanded justice and called for greater protections for transgender people. In the days following Gwen Araujo's murder, Jaron Neighbors, one of the men involved, began to feel the weight of guilt. Unable to keep the crime a secret, he confessed to a friend, who then alerted the authorities. Neighbors led the police to Gwen's shallow grave, revealing the location of her body and the details of the murder. His cooperation with the authorities would later play a crucial role in the prosecution of the case. The arrests of Michael Magid's son, Jose Merrill, Jaron Neighbors, and Jason Cazorez quickly followed. The case garnered widespread media attention, as it was one of the first high-profile cases involving the murder of a transgender individual in the United States. The trial brought to light the deep-seated prejudices and societal issues surrounding gender identity, forcing the nation to confront its attitudes towards transgender people. During the trial, the defense argued that the men were provoked into a heat of passion by the discovery of Gwen's transgender identity, an argument rooted in the controversial gay trans panic defense. This defense claims that a person's discovery of another's LGBTQ+ identity can provoke them into a state of temporary insanity, leading to violent actions. However, this defense was met with significant criticism, as it sought to justify the brutal murder of a young woman based on her identity. In 2004, after 2 trials, Michael Magid's son and Jose Merrill were convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Jason Cazorez, who had been charged as an accomplice, eventually took a plea deal for manslaughter and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Jaron Neighbors, who had cooperated with the authorities, received an 11-year sentence for manslaughter in exchange for his testimony against the others. The trial of Gwen Araujo's killers highlighted the shortcomings of the legal system in addressing hate crimes against transgender individuals. While justice was served in the form of convictions, the case exposed the need for greater legal protections and the elimination of defenses that sought to justify violence based on gender identity. Gwen Araujo's murder led to significant changes in California law. In 2006, California passed the Gwen Araujo Justice for Victims Act, which restricted the use of the gay trans panic defense in court. The act was a crucial step towards ensuring that victims of hate crimes receive the justice they deserve, without their identities being used against them in court. The legacy of Gwen Araujo lives on through the continued fight for transgender rights and protections. Her story is a reminder of the violence that transgender individuals face and the importance of advocating for a more inclusive and understanding society. Gwen's life, though tragically cut short, has had a lasting impact on the fight for equality and justice for all, regardless of gender identity. The murder of Gwen Araujo did not just end with the convictions of her killers, it sparked a significant movement for change, leaving a lasting impact on both the legal system and societal attitudes toward transgender individuals. Gwen's tragic death served as a catalyst for crucial reforms and heightened awareness about the violence and discrimination faced by the transgender community. One of the most significant outcomes of Gwen's case was the passage of the Gwen Araujo Justice for Victims Act in 2006. This legislation, enacted in California, restricted the use of the gay trans panic defense in court, a legal strategy that had been used to argue that the discovery of a victim's LGBTQ+ identity could provoke a temporary state of insanity in the perpetrator. The act was a landmark victory for LGBTQ+ rights, as it recognized that such defenses were rooted in prejudice and could no longer be used to justify acts of violence. This legal change was directly inspired by the defense strategies employed during the trials of Gwen's killers, which had sparked outrage and calls for reform. Gwen's case also played a pivotal role in raising awareness and fostering advocacy for transgender rights. Her story brought national attention to the unique challenges faced by transgender individuals, particularly the dangers of living in a society where their identities are often misunderstood or outright rejected. The media coverage of her murder and the subsequent trials helped to humanize the transgender community, putting a face to the violence that many transgender people experience. Gwen became a symbol of the broader struggle for transgender acceptance and equality, and her story has been used in educational programs to combat transphobia and promote understanding. The cultural impact of Gwen Araujo's case extended far beyond the courtroom. Her murder highlighted the need for greater societal acceptance of transgender individuals and spurred conversations about gender identity and the rights of transgender people. The visibility of her case contributed to a growing movement for transgender rights, which has continued to gain momentum in the years since her death. Gwen's legacy is remembered through documentaries, books, and public memorials that honor her life and the broader fight for justice that her death inspired. Community support played a crucial role in the aftermath of Gwen's murder. The LGBTQ+ community, along with allies, rallied around Gwen's family, providing them with the strength and resources needed to seek justice. Organizations advocating for transgender rights used her case as a rallying point to push for broader legal protections and support for transgender individuals. This collective response underscored the importance of community in the fight against hate crimes and in supporting those who are most vulnerable to violence. Despite the progress made since Gwen's death, the fight for transgender equality is far from over. Transgender individuals continue to face significant challenges, including violence, discrimination, and legal barriers. Gwen's story serves as a powerful reminder of the ongoing need for advocacy, education, and legal reform to protect the rights of transgender people. Her case has inspired a new generation of activists who are dedicated to ensuring that no one else has to suffer the way she did. In the end, Gwen Araujo's legacy is one of resilience and change. Her life, though tragically cut short, has had a profound impact on the world, helping to shape a future where transgender individuals are recognized, respected, and protected. The changes in law and society that followed her death stand as a testament to her enduring influence, and her story continues to inspire those who fight for a more just and equitable world.